After a long, hard week of Counter-Strike, after a lot of preparations and some upsets to be had, we have finally come to this point. We're on Sunday, and you know what that means. It's the Elisa Invitational Qualifier Finals to see who can actually make it through to the Blast Showdown, to join with the likes of Evil Geniuses, Team Liquid, Complexity, and FaZe Clan. Some big names, but possibly about to be joined by some even bigger names. Now, there are some other names in this broadcast as well. They're slightly smaller, and they're myself, it's Mahmoud I'm Sabri, and I'm joined by my co-caster, Michael Yumi Cassidy. Michael, I hope
Afterwards, they play Apex. It's an overtime game. It's a 19-16 win for Apex, but they ultimately fall a bit short because Heroic have made it through not quite a lower bracket system, but they've come through after losing that first game, and so they've had to play more games as a result. Whereas on the other side of things, you have Godsent, who did pretty well. I mean, they secured their spot pretty much instantly. So they won their first two opening best of ones, and then that was it. They're through to the final.
Well, listen, that also means that Godsent had a little bit more time to prepare for themselves as well. They had Wednesday and Thursday off, and you can see Friday, Saturday were off for pretty much everyone. Now, today we've got ourselves two games. Of course, this will be the first one, Heroic facing off versus Godsent. The latter game of the day will be Havu versus Mad Lions. Havu, the final finish in representation at the Elisa Invitational. Now that ENCE was unfortunately forced to withdraw, and Havu, of course, made it through by beating the replacement of ENCE. So somewhat fitting way to actually get a Finnish team over there as well. But let's go back to this series that we're on about, though. Heroic and Godsent should be an interesting one, and let's jump into the video, because I think there's a lot of crossover within the maps that these teams actually play. So for me personally, Michael, I have down for myself that Godsent bans out Mirage, Heroic bans out Dust 2. Pretty standard stuff. Do you have anything where you maybe disagree with me? I know you've got your own notes on the veto as well.
No, I think that's probably about right. Stu's a hard veto for Heroic. It's not a map that Godsent play too often either. And you're absolutely right that Mirage and Dust 2, there is a fair amount of crossover in the map pool for the two sides. So they're banning for each other, but at the same time, you won't see too many surprises in that first wave. I think the second wave is really where things get a little bit more interesting, because both of these teams have comfortable wins, but they also have pretty significant losses across the remaining map pool.
Yes,
so where this ends up after the first round is the most interesting part.
Well, look, personally, I don't think Nuke really makes it through in the first round. I think Heroic's way too good on it. Godsent doesn't really pick it. And I also think Godsent's good enough that Heroic doesn't feel confident picking it. But they actually do go for that. And our production is right on point to say, Tea Time, you're useless. You don't know what you're talking about.
You're wrong.
Go for it. But you're wrong, exactly. Now, I personally thought Nuke would be the decider. So for me, the veto looked something on the lines of that Godsent would pick Overpass. Heroic would put Vertigo, which is a map that Godsent themselves aren't so comfortable on. Instead, we do have the Overpass pick coming in from Godsent, but Vertigo not quite there. Michael, what are you thinking about this so far before you really proceed through to the second half?
Yeah, this is something that Heroic have liked to do against teams that are good good on nukes, that they're confident enough to pick into it. I know that I have my own grievances about the Godsent nuke, so I don't think this is going to be the strongest performance from them on the first map. But at the same time, you have to veto confidently, and I like that Heroic have gone with that first, because sometimes teams, if they get the second round at it, they'll be like, oh, the strongest map in the pool is still left floating. We should probably get rid of that one. So picking confidently into that forces their hand now as well, because then the option of Vertigo opens up. We know we have our issues with that. Godsent have looked to be developing on that map because they understand that they have a hard veto themselves, so they need to be good across 6 maps. If it goes into a decider like that, though, that could be very dangerous.
Well, I've got my predictions wrong already, so I think we should sweep through the rest of the veto as well. As we have Inferno being banned, Godsent bans out, Vertigo and Train is a decider. Personally, I really dislike this veto from Heroic, and for me personally, I'll tell you why that is. Nuke's a map that's amazing for Heroic, but I'm 99% sure Godsent doesn't ban that in their second phase. However, Vertigo, also a map where Heroic are actually really good on, and I think Godsent's Vertigo is their weakest map in the pool outside of Mirage, which is kind of their permaban anyway. So if you're picking Vertigo in, for me, that's an automatic win. Then you go into Overpass, it's slightly more contestable. I think Crystal has some great calls on Overpass, but they're still likely to potentially fall down. So you're setting yourself up much better for a potential 2-0 in there. Now, with that being said, this is still all right, but I wouldn't really want to face against an opponent who's actually quite happy playing Nuke if I'm Heroic over here.
Yeah, all three maps are comfortable for Heroic.
Yes.
You have to also understand, like, when we look at the map win percentages for Heroic, they are typically up against higher tiered opposition more often than not. So Godsent has been sort of bordering tier 1, bordering tier 2, but that little bit in the middle, you add this disparity where, sure, you might be better than a lot of the tier 2 teams, but doing the same thing that you do at that tier against tier 1 is a little bit more difficult, because even if you are even like a 40% win rate team on some maps, if you're at the tier 1, you can still be worlds better than some of the up-and-comers.
Well, Michael, I know we say that, but at the same time, I also don't want to take away from Godsent, because this is a narrative we've been painting since DreamHack Open, which is that Crystal is basically the 30-second master. So the setups that they're going to have going into this, when they're, I mean, I'm pretty sure they were 99% certain they'd be facing off against Heroic, let's be honest, even if Heroic didn't make it through immediately. Godsent probably thought that anyhow. So there's a lot of room to anti-strat Heroic as well. So the kind of preparation going into this means that Godsent should have a decent enough idea. Now, Nuke is potentially slightly exploitable. The only problem is, of course, Heroic is 17-3 on that map. So, I mean, if anyone was going to exploit Heroic on Nuke, I'm pretty sure they would have done it already, in all fairness. But, you know, you never know. Crystal's got some things up his sleeve, could really come through. I think Train's where it'll get really interesting if it actually gets there. What do you think about Overpass? And why don't we move into predictions while we're at it as well? How do you think that's going?
So if we're going to go with predictions, I'm looking at a 2-0 for Heroic. I think the veto definitely favors them overall, and unless Godsent come in all guns swinging, because we know the ceiling for the team is so high that they could just take series altogether. But hitting that ceiling is the other issue. I think for Overpass, that is a contestable map, but Heroic are still very good at Overpass. So yeah, I'm thinking it's going to end up in a 2-0, but I think Nuke will be very close.
Right. So for me, it actually hinges incredibly around Nuke. I don't think it's... I think, okay, this is where I'll hedge my bets a bit. I think it's a 2-0 if Heroic wins Nuke handily, but otherwise I think it's a 2-1 going for Heroic. Train, I still don't really give too much of a shot to Godsent. I'm not 100% confident in how they play Train. They actually have a few places where I think Farlig falls short as an opper, and very often the opping is taken up, sometimes even by Madden and Crystal on primary and secondary, though in all fairness, this is quite variable and shifts from place to place and map to map for this team. Now, personally, I think Godsent definitely have a reasonable chance, and I'd say I wouldn't be surprised if they 2-0 the series, because Nuke is a place where if Madden's coming in and he's going insane, this is a completely different ball game. Stiko is good old reliable, but I think Stiko is very easily countered out. Stiko's positioning on Nuke gets a little bit stale at times, so maybe they brought in something to change that as well, because they have struggled at getting Stiko into these high fragging positions that he has traditionally occupied on the map. So for me, it's largely going to be around Farlig and Madden on Nuke. If these two players come alive, I think Heroic could actually feasibly be losing 2-0 to Godsent. Overpass is a map where Crystal is fantastic at using the connector in particular to go for nice pincer plays across the map. I think Crystal has some great strats where they're able to use, on the CT side, a pincer play setting up 3 players going aggressively into connector, 2 players from B are ready to retreat backwards, and the A side becomes impossible to breach as a result of that. So there are some interesting setups that come through from Godsent, which make it so I think Heroic definitely could end up slipping and breaking their neck.
Yeah, I think a lot of it will hinge as well about whether, I mean, you talk about Stiko being a player, or at least like a pivotal piece of the Godsent win condition. You also have to talk about Zen, who has also been sort of tapering off. So I don't know how much of that as well is them implementing Farlig better and having to create more room for him to operate. because he has been on the rise while they've been on a decline, because so maybe there's a correlation we can draw there, or whether it is just a lack of form, because I mean, Stico's even said it himself. I think on his Twitter, he was saying, like, I'm not really performing to how I think I should be. And if I mean, the best team in the world, that's who you're facing up in the server to qualify for the showdown. You need him to step up, and you need him to be that high performer that he knows he can be.
Well, we're into the server against the best team of the world. We'll have to see how Godsent fares. They, of course, do get the advantage of starting over on the CT side, but, I mean, at this point, Heroic is no stranger to starting on T, considering how often they pick this map.
Good bit of outside control to start. The flash as well. Farlig, 1 for 1. They're actually doing a bit of team damage, and, well, that's going to make it easier for Zen. He's actually gunning them down from heaven. These long-range angles, he'll wait for his teammates to come through, and they still haven't collapsed on this site. The bombs dropped out in the open as well, but still even in the trades. Ooh, down, now just out to Madden, and he's descending. Oh, this is very awkward.
He switched out his USB, but he can't get it done, and Godsent, while they're in the 3v2 advantage, they're getting too overzealous to actually get and down onto the site itself. Instead of trying to contest from a slightly more favorable position, when they drop down, it's easy picking for Nico. There's no easy way to double peek him because the player up in heaven is low HP himself. Martin's not feeling all too secure. An advantageous position given up by them in that situation. Now, though, Heroic, much faster paced play, directly to drop a player down into vents. It's Nico to make his way down. And the CTs, they've gone for the force buy, but I think they may be losing quite a bit of control because of this if they want to rotate players back to Nico.
Ooh, good reaction here from Godsent, though. Pushing in towards lobby, they find a pick on Stown. And sure, Nico has this lower activation. They should understand that that's a possibility. They would have heard the sound cue, unless
good reaction here from Godsent, though.
Over.
That makes it really tricky to walk out of the door, but Caden's able to do it. He takes him down. Martin peeks out, but Tessis is ready. With this, it should be an easy enough round. Borup as well with the Mach 10. Misses a few shots, and that gives Farlig an opportunity to get away with a kill. Caden's down already, and both Farlig and Stico can back off and save these weapons. Now, Zen, of course, was the pivotal point of that overall CT setup. He needed to find that first kill, and as Stico tries to aggress on his own, he will not be able to get much. Farlig backs off, and he'll save the scout for another round. Now, again, just the initial contact made by Caden over there, I think that's really what wins him the round. Tessis then comes through and finishes it. Martin, really nicely done at the end of the day by Heroic to recover.
Yeah, I actually wonder if we were able to look primarily at Zen's position, whether Nico would have made a sound cue on the ladder just to pull the aim away for a split second, whether that's something that Heroic may have explored. Always a big fan of the small details. And, well, that's not a minor one. Farlig losing the scout. The money for Godsent, of course, is absent, so bringing that over would have been a nice little benefit, but Heroic recognized that nice and early. 6-0 start for Nico, only in 2 rounds.
Martin and Stico both buy up a deagle. Farlig going for the 5-7. I really dislike that, actually. He'll have enough money for the op in the next round regardless, but utility will be a bit more dry, and as a result of that, he'll have to get aggressive to compensate. Farlig on the nuke CT side is actually a very good oppa, so I'll say this, that he can make it work, but it's not ideal to say the least. It does limit your options somewhat when your entire team's money is already strained as it is. Now, Crystal dodges an A, dodges the flash, rotates over, and he'll be playing a bit of a crossfire with Stico, but Heroic right now have to be careful about Zen, who's coming in from behind, and Zen with the USB comes in with a kill, but no more.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be too many real surprises outside of that one. If Zen had found 2 kills, maybe there was a chance, but all onus on Stico now if they want to turn this round on its head, and, well, because he's lost Crystal, even more so.
Nico's been left behind to safeguard the weapon, and Nico's quite low. So Stico, if he's checking all of his corners, if he's doing everything right, nodding his eyes, crossing his T's, all that good stuff,
There's some really annoying angles you have to clear out, though, if you're going to go
true,
this
actually.
way.
There's like these really thin ones as well from the side of truck and everything. It's super frustrating.
Stiko's dead, 100% surely.
Nah, maybe. I don't know about that, though. Maybe he checks this, because Nico's going a little bit wider now. He will get 1 kill, but that's... Okay, not quite on the player we thought he would.
Yeah.
But still, an additional kill always nice to have when he's putting that $700 investment. Pops him right over that 5k mark. He can actually buy a Molotov now as well, which wouldn't have been there otherwise. So that's actually fairly impactful.
Disgusting behavior from Nico, baiting for his 8th kill. But a nice 3-0 start for Heroic as Godsent answered back. Of course, you talked about Farlig on that AWP. He, of course, will be missing out on a kit, something that the entire Godsent roster is missing out on. So if it ends up in a post-plant, they'll have to go rather quickly. Look at all this pressure being applied by Nico. This is actually something that Nico on X-Phase used to like to do as well. Solo himself, Farlig pressured over at ramp, and he's going to be forced back.
Zen has at least found the kill onto Nico, who's already low. So Zen, who's proceeded forward to the secret area himself, will take him down. But look at how Borup's trying to proceed. They've gone for the reverse outside control, where they go from hell instead. And Zen gets another before going down. That is inexcusable from Heroic. Now down 4 versus 3. Borup can equalize, but utility will have to be expended to actually still make their contact in. And Stiko's got a gap in this smoke to work around with. Now, whether or not it works in his favor is to be seen, as Borup will see the foot right as it lingers forward. Takes him down. 2 versus 3. Farlig on the AWP yet to strike in, and true means that Heroic, well, they might have dodged a bullet, and indeed they have. Borup gets his 3rd kill of the round, and his Crystal all on his lonesome. Peeks out, drops the bomb, 35 seconds, has a chance to go for more, but needs to wide swing here, and Kaden will intercept.
Really nice effort there from Crystal. I actually thought he was going to pull that one off because he had isolated duels ahead of him, and that first kill, very, very sharp, but ultimately too tall a task. It's interesting that that we see that outside control from Heroic as soon as they lose that lurking player in Nico. Yeah. I imagine if he'd gotten down safely, then they just wrapped towards the B bomb site. No problems whatsoever. Good on-the-fly reaction from Heroic. Cadian, though, with the AWP, will start things off. Of course, it is against pistols here from Godsent, so it's less likely they're going to win a round like this, especially given Heroic's track record in these anti-ecos. And I know we've talked about Godsent's nuke and when they pick up these pistols as being very, I want to say star-focused, or individual focus is really what I'm trying to get at, because they don't go for gimmicky stacks, they don't set up for flash plays all too often, they just hold spots and hope that the Deegs and CZs hit.
And look, sometimes they do.
Yeah.
We definitely can't take that away from them, but it becomes a lot trickier when on the other side, you know, Heroic does have some of that good old screw you Counter-Strike, which is, you know, sort of what we're seeing over here, but not exactly. But it's the screw you Counter-Strike, which is that, you know, they'll sometimes take a peek and they say, yeah, we're just better than you. Borup peeking Farlig earlier in the gun round when he's got an AK and Farlig has an AWP. That's something like that. You know, Heroic now have kind of the confidence of champions as they almost lose another player. Stiko not quite able to execute him. Then as he goes up the ladder, he will go down, but yeah, that individual confidence, you can see that right there. Tessis dropping down from the ladder, just spraying away into the dead body. There you go. Geneva convention be damned.
There's no need. You're 5-0 up. He's already dead. Right. Now the big question becomes, we talk about Farlig on the AWP. We have seen him get more aggressive as of late, when he is typically quite a passive AWPer, but he's so good at these close-range duels. He will be still staying a little bit further back. He has a teammate up close. That will be Zen as a secondary form of contact. And he's just there to make sure that Farlig doesn't get timinged, repositioning, looking for other picks. He can play around the smoke as well. Different set of outside smokes as well for Heroic. This actually enables them to wrap towards Mini, but that's where Zen was positioned. So easy first kill. Actually finding a second as well.
Yeah, Heroic go for this with two smokes as well. Stiko, though, nestled away in ramp corner. Good for a kill and almost a second. Now with a flashbang to fail, Farlig will also do the same with his shot and can no longer hold the angle. Backs off, waits for a flash of his teammate, and as Cadian is proceeding forward, Farlig almost goes down. Heroic still fighting it back with a 2v4, and CT side don't really have much utility, so in a battle of firepower and wits, Heroic definitely have a chance to take this one away. It doesn't help that Stound's very low, but his Molotov sure as hell will as he scopes backwards, watching for decontamination. Turns around for the sickest shot in the West, and he will go forward for the bomb plant as well. Cadian to cover, Cadian to spray, Cadian not to find anyone, and Stound will fall because of it. Cadian can't cover the decontamination route, and as his teammate falls, their chances with the round do as well.
I always get so concerned when players are hitting shots like that because you just know they are feeling it in the moment. To commit to a no-scope like that, the confidence as well to turn away. Good round for Godsent to win, but Heroic definitely make that one scary. Oh no. Zen getting picked off early towards Mini as well.
That's a big one. Zen was so impactful in the previous round, bringing it home. And Farlig on the bright side is coming alive, but the second flick doesn't work, and he has to back off at this point. Does he? Is he re-peeking? Really? Wow.
Wow. And Heroic have fallen back as well, so it's actually a good read in the end. If not a dangerous game to play.
Very much so. Martin, though, his middle name is Danger, and he has been acquainted with death as well. Not quite his middle name, but a distant relative who he meets quite often. Farlig takes away Borup's life, and Cadian left in a 1v2. He started this round, and now he is in an attempt to finish. But with Farlig coming in from behind, things will be a little bit more difficult. Cadian makes his way down the fence. Do they realize that it doesn't really look like it is the case? Stiko and company, they know there's also 50 seconds left, so they can't really overcommit. And with the squeaky door of decontamination being open, that's that. Cadian waits for them to make their way over. Rotation's coming through, but they're from behind. Does he realize it? Yes, he does. Turns around. Good flick, but second peek from Stiko will secure the kill. Godsent get it away with very, very little saved up in this round.
Yeah, one player staying over. At least Godsent play that 2v1 rather smartly because, of course, they double up. You can see Cadian was still so worried about the ramp rotation, the potential for a split coming through. And they make sure that only one player makes any audio. So Cadian still has to keep that in the back of his mind. Faster play here from Heroic. They're collapsing on this A site quickly, and Martin's dropped in an instant. The SMG is tracking him down. Crystal as well, forced off of his angle. They'll have to play for retake, and sure, they have some utility to do so. They have kits as well, but they have to make sure they don't bleed out on their manpower because Cadian's found another. This actually may be a call to save now.
I mean, it has to be after you only kept one player alive in the previous one. There's no way you can take this away. Now, on the bright side, have you noticed that the second set of outside smokes that Heroic throws, it's very different to how other teams throw them. Heroic throws it with 2 smokes instead of 3. It leaves a big gap in the middle, though.
Yeah, I don't know if I mean, I'll imagine the gap isn't something that is intentional.
It's not possible to throw with, like, 2 without leaving a gap.
Okay.
I see this again.
Yeah, they've done it once again. Maybe it's something. Okay, I was gonna say maybe it's not by design, but seems like something they're factoring in. They talk about it. There's a third smoke that's thrown.